Hello and welcome. I'm Claudia Mühlenweg. I'm the creator of the Naturally Clear Vision Method. I'm a Bates teacher, a yoga teacher, and a role model method practitioner. And in this lesson, we will go over a great ball routine, a myofascial release routine for your lower back and your hips. And you need, for the very first practice we will be doing, we will be working on the psoas, those hip flexors. You need an air-filled squishy ball. I like the quadratus balls from Tune Up Fitness that come in two colors. And you don't have to have them as blown up, depending on your sensitivity. For the hip flexors, I would say it's okay to have it fully blown up, but for a lot of other practices, especially if you put it on your abdomen, you want it to look more like this, more like a 60% blown up. And then you also need, potentially need, depending on your sensitivity, you might need a yoga block or thick book, and you need a pair of tune-up fitness balls, like they're these little guys, the yoga tune-up balls. They're all the same, just different colors. And you might also want to use, if you have them, depending again on your sensitivity, a plus and an alpha ball that's slightly bigger. So I will be using all three, and I will show you different options. So the first thing we will be doing is the quadratus ball. Let me show you that muscle. So the psoas, let me see, I also had a side view somewhere here. The psoas major is this huge hip flexor, and this is the view from, this is the front of the body, so the lower vertebrae, and then it connects right to your inner, to the femur bone, right? So you see this big muscle. And I like when you look at it from the side, look how it connects from the deep, so it's very deep on the spine, but how it connects, it wraps around, right? So it's a huge, so if you have back pain, you know, or like that's why my chiropractor a lot of times works on my belly to release lower back pain, because you know that it's not like there's the front of the body, there's the back, and you know it's like two different pieces. It's like it's really all connected. So that's what we do first. Let's get started, and then I will show the other muscles we will be using or working on. So place that ball right, you know, right here on that kind of where the hip flexor is. So I'm going to start with this side. And just roll a little bit around, making funny fart sounds. You can also lower your head down. I want to make sure I'm in the video. Maybe I scooch back a little bit. Then you can explore bending the knee, straightening it, maybe doing a little bit of just exploring different options, maybe lifting that leg. Make sure you breathe. And maybe you could do this and you lean more weight into it. So the hip flexors, you know, when we do a lot of sitting, they kind of lose their range of motion. And that's when, you know, you suddenly go to a yoga class and you want to do wheel pose and you realize you have no hip extension. And hip extension is, which is something that's difficult for me. It's like when, you know, when you kind of, when you bend, when you put the thigh behind the hips. So for me, and I haven't warmed up yet, but this is kind of it, but some people can really lift their thigh really up high. So hip extension, you know, relies on a lot of things, but amongst that, it relies on your psoas to have enough flexibility and not be frozen in a contracted state. All right, let's switch to the other side. This is just a gentle warm up. Make sure you really deep breathe. You breathe deeply into the abdomen. And then maybe explore windshield wipering your shin or lifting your thigh. Or doing kind of a frog move with the knee to the top of the shoulders. So that's a little harder on a sticky mat. Okay, so that was just a little bit of a warm up. So the next thing, we'll show you the muscles. We will be working on the lower back. So there's the erector spinae group. It's like a bunch of these muscles. So they run all the way from your neck, different muscles, right? All the way down the bottom. So there's the spinalis, So it's right next to your spine. The longissimus. And then this is like really the big one, iliocostalis. So that's really, see how big. So we will be touching that. And the main muscle that you might feel the most is the quadratus lumborum. So this is a rear view from behind. So this is this big muscle, and that's when you hike your hips up. When you do, anytime you kind of chinch up your waist and you hike your hip up, or you stand in a kind of cutesy stance. So that's that muscle that we will be working on. And then when we do, here you also see here, you see the psoas major also in this card. See, it's a top muscle, that little triangle there. And then we will also be doing a little work on the glutes today. So the hips and the glutes. And so you see the different muscles on the buttocks there. And here is another card. So this is the IT band, right? And then here, I want to show you this side. So you see and then this big muscle is the gluteus maximus, the gluteus medius. And then here in front, that little sliver is the tensor fasciae lata, which is this muscle. So that's another one of the hip flexors. So that we will be working on all those. All right. So let's start with the lower back. You can use either the tune-up balls, or if you have those and you're very sensitive, you can use the plus balls. So either ones are fine. I recommend that you either have a really tight top on, or you might even be doing this on directly on skin. So we will be rolling, the balls are side by side, and we will be kind of just rolling up and down right here. So you're going to be on your forearms like so, and then you roll this up and down. And I like to do this on my skin, so I will lift my top up and this a little down. Oops. So I get that grippiness of the balls. Feels so good. And they might travel, they might wander to the side, which is fine. If you find there's more tension there, I like to keep them right next to the spine, along that longissimus and spinalis muscle. And it's also, if you can also come down at any time and just rest on the balls if you find a spot. So we're kind of going between the lower ribs and the top of the pelvis right now. And so what nice thing to do is like a pelvic tuck. So you're tucking your pelvis, as if you so you're doing the kind of arching your back and then tucking your pelvis. So the balls kind of press a little bit gently into that area. So inhale, you arch your back, and then exhale, tuck your pelvis. So it's kind of a contract, relax action. And this works for me best kind of right above that pelvic rim. And then next, we will place the two balls. So we will be rolling the balls basically from one side across the spine to the other side. So let me see, I'll scooch a little further away. So you place them side by side, and this is right on your waist. So you're not on your ribs, you're not on your pelvis. You're right in that soft, fleshy area right here, right? And then so you kind of shimmy, you bend your body a little bit so that the balls travel all the way to the left and then all the way to the right. So you have to do a little bit of a, here. You can put them in the tote, but then you don't get that grippiness. So if you have clothes on, it's totally fine to put them in the tote because you don't, and again, we might have to reset them. You don't get that grip on the skin anyway. But, sometimes that's the thing, if you don't have them in the tote, they sometimes, and if you find a juicy spot, you can kind of stay there and wiggle your hips a little bit. On that outer left hip, I find something, yeah. And I'm slowly moving diagonally away here. So a few more times, just if you find, like, this is what I like to do. So the balls are vertically, you see that? So they're vertically stacked. Yeah, I'll make sure you see what I'm doing. Yeah, but you go all the way or you stay in one spot. It's always okay to explore an area where you feel something. Okay, let's look at my notes. I wrote them last night, what else I wanted to do here. Okay, so now, so the next one is really focused on the QL, the quadratus lomborum, which was this bad boy here. And you have different options. So I like to do the most intense one, which is a yoga block with a small ball on top of it. So then you will put your lower back on this. That's like the most amount of pressure. You can also just have the ball on the mat, or if that's too intense, then you can use an alpha ball. This is a great use of this ball. I love to do it with that ball. I will show you all the options, or you use a plus ball. So basically, you will be in that same space, right here. So depending on, it might be a little bit more painful here or tight, or it might be more tight right above that pelvic rim. But you will basically be doing a little bit of this, and you can kind of explore different parts of that muscle, higher up, lower. Let me show with the alpha ball first. So I'm showing the mildest version first, and I'm just doing one side. You're not crossing over the spine. So I'm just doing this. This feels so good. And again, if you do it on skin, you can also, what I love to do, you can wind up that ball. You can kind of grab it and spin it a little bit so it really grabs your tissues, and then you just breathe. Oh, wonderful. So that's one version. And then obviously you can do the same thing with a plus ball, a little bit smaller, or you can use the smallest one, the yoga tune-up ball, right? So this is more like as if a thumb, you're pressing a thumb into those tissues. This is more like an elbow, and then the alpha ball is more like a fist. So, but I like to do it with the block. And so you kind of get up, and then you put that ball on the block, right? So now I have a lot more pressure. But this is, don't do this. This is if it's already really tight when you use any of the other balls without the block. And I'm only having my arm overhead because that way, I can do this so you can see the balls. Wow. And it makes like a sound for me here. And you can always use your breath, just sustain compression. So there's nothing wrong with just deep breath in, and this is actually a good suggestion, and then so you can do that same breath where you inhale, you almost arch your back a little bit, and then the exhale, you tuck your pelvis and you really squeeze down into that ball, right? So you activate. That makes it a little bit more intense, or you can just rest on the ball and just let it sink into the tissue. So the active contract relax makes it a bit more intense. And then also that rolling side to side. So you're cross fibering, you're going 90 degrees in the angle of the muscle right now. This is the spot this has been a difficult spot for me since my 20s when I first had my sciatica incident. And I remember the physical therapist working on that spot and pressing that. That was like almost 40 years ago. And I remember how that hurt. And so that spot for me is a really key point to work on, because if that gets tight, or even worse, then I feel it everywhere. But the hips are also important. That's why we also work on the hips. So it's not just the spot that actually hurts, it's all the other tissues that are connected to that, the muscles and the fascia. All right. So now you can create a stretch of that muscle by reaching your arm back and lengthening so you're really stretching and maybe even bending to that other side. So I'm bending a little bit to the left, so I'm getting the ultimate amount of stretch in that muscle while I'm pressing down on the ball. All right. And then you can also do the opposite. So you cinched your chin, like you kind of try to I'm trying to bring my right hip and my right shoulder together. Again, sometimes you have to reset this. So I'm activating that muscle. So this is like the hip hiker muscle, like this. So you squeeze it and then you press and then you relax and then you cinch up your waist, press. Yeah, so there's a lot of different ways to explore this. And maybe go a little higher. Yeah, for me, it's always that lower part right here. Okay, oh, that feels so good. And now we will do the other side. So I'm not going to turn around. It takes so much time. I'm going to just switch to the other side. So again, the yoga block is totally optional on a thick book. So you can absolutely do the same thing. So I have the ball on the left side now. You can see right here. And just let it settle in. Maybe do a little bit of that rolling side to side. I don't know, I'm a little, excuse me, coarse right now. And you can, I didn't show that in the first side, but you can also, if you have it on your skin, you can wind up that ball, even if you're on the block, just kind of spin it a little bit so it grabs more of those tissues. And then you can do that contract, relax. The first one we did, so you inhale, you really almost arch your back a little bit, and then you exhale and you squeeze down. So you tighten your abs. And then inhale, reach, like really arch your back, and then kind of tuck your pelvis, engage your abs, squeeze. Big inhale and exhale. And then if you want to explore that lengthening, so now I'm lengthening my left arm to the front, I'm reaching my left leg back, and I'm kind of bending a little bit to the right, so I get that ultimate amount of stretch in that QL. And the ilio, no, I'm blanking on that other lung muscle, all these other muscles along the spine. Ilio, what is costalis, I think it was called. And then the other way to do it is to contract the QL by now bending your body to the left if you're doing the left side. So you're kind of like, I'm now leaning, I'm kind of chinching up, creating a C shape in my left waist by bringing my left hip up to the left shoulder. So that's how you activate that muscle. And then maybe let go and then do it again. Man, that feels so good. This is one of my favorite things to do. Let's see if I missed anything. Nope. Okay, so now let's move on to the hips. For the hips, we want the first thing area we want to work on is kind of the greater trochanter. It's the insertion of that the bone, the top of here. It's like a little bony protrusion. If you don't feel it, don't worry about it. You will be using either a small ball, or if you have either, again, one of these bigger ones, they're really nice for this. So you see the different size. Let me drink a sip of water. So I'm going to use the small one because that's what most of you have. And you place that, you can, you know, I actually like to come down. And so you're just kind of circling that hip. And it's nice to, let me actually use a bigger ball so you see more what I'm doing. So I have that ball in that kind of area, and I'm just have my left foot on the floor on the mat here. And then the right one is kind of to the side. And now I'm circling like a little belly dance. Just circling that area. And if you don't exactly, don't worry so much exactly where you are. Any of these tissues need your attention. So if you don't have that exact part, then it's totally fine. I'm going to use a plus one. Let's see. That's why it's nice to have all the different, yeah, this one is, ooh, yeah, now I feel something. So for me, like the alpha ball didn't really make a big impact. This is better. So you can, you know, you can circle it, you can go a little side to side. Ooh, yeah. Now I feel a lot. Yeah. This is perfect. And I just like to also just rest on that, like not necessarily move, but just breathe into it. Yeah, that one, that little one was just the right thing I needed. And I will turn around to the other side. So you could potentially also do that on your forearm like so, right? But I like to personally lay down. It's more relaxing, and then have your, your leg bent is nice, and just drop it. And you make little circles, or you just wiggle your hips side to side. It's easier this way. Use your breath. The breath is your best friend, especially the exhale. That's a spot right here. So I'm just going to stay there and just let the ball sink into the tissues. The sustained compression feels so good. Just letting, just pressing a little bit into that area. If you were to do this at home and you had this on bare skin, you can always do that winding up. That feels really good. Okay. So for the next one, we will be working on those upper, so it's kind of, we're right in that area where the gluteus medius, all those kind of, so we're going to be right on that upper area right there. Kind of where if you had like high jeans, the high jeans pockets, right? So it's kind of this area here. And for that, we use 2 balls and we place them like so. So one is more on the side, one is more on the back, right? So this way. You can also put them in the tote if you want. You can also use 2 plus balls. So I'm actually like to switch it to this side first. Okay. So I'm putting them right here. Oh, yeah. Scooch. Put my props out of the way. I have so much stuff here on my floor, all these props. Okay, and I like to come onto the mat as well for this. And then, so I'm doing the right side, and your bottom leg is straight, and then the other one is kind of your kickstand. And now you can, if I'm using, sorry, you don't see my foot, but what I'm doing is I'm doing this with my bottom leg. So I'm pointing and flexing it, and that means I'm traveling a little bit up and down. And I'm so glad this doesn't hurt a lot for me today. So I'm like, yay, it's always so exciting if you don't feel something. Okay. And then you can add other motions. So one way the gluteus medius action is to abduct the hip. So it does this, right? When you do this. So with your bottom leg, imagine you can squeeze into the floor. So squeeze into the floor and then relax. And squeeze and relax. Squeeze and relax. Other thing you can do is just lift that leg up. So a few times. Don't forget to breathe. So lift that leg up. So that stretches those muscles, right? Because their job is to abduct, to bring the leg away, that gluteus minimus. So, okay, and then my favorite move is to bicycle. And this is where you usually feel the most. So you bicycle. Now I'm feeling something. So really it depends on all these different motions, right? There's all these different actions. There's just sustained compression where you just let the ball settle in. Then you can do that contract, relax, where you engage the muscle area and then you relax it. And then you can add that little rolling either with the grain of the muscle or against it. And then you can add, you can spin the ball, pin it and spin it, or you can add this pressure plus motion where you press and you add motion. And then depending on what motion you use, that will make it more or less intense, right? So it's so interesting to kind of figure out the movements that you do. Okay, enough of that. I don't know about you, but I have enough on this side. So let's switch. Other side. So the balls will be again right here. But we will be moving them, as you've seen. We will be moving them, so even if you don't have them, they will definitely be traveling. So I'm going to come down. These out of the way. And let's see my balls. Yes. And I always like to just check in. So they're right here, right? One is behind me and one is more on the side. And this is already more intense than the other side. So always interesting, right? So my left hip, that's weird. I would have not expected that because I've been having I did a 5-day fast, and during that fast, I had the most intense back pain. And I don't know if it's just from the fasting, but I also didn't do my yoga during that time. And I started yoga again, my daily morning yoga 3 days ago. And after this first day of doing yoga, my back pain was gone, but I also started eating food. So I did it at the same time. So I'm not sure. All right, and then you can do that pointing of your foot, of your lower foot, like pointing and flexing. So maybe you can see my foot. So you point and flex, and then the balls will travel, maybe an inch or so up and down. Okay. And if you want, by the way, I forgot to say that, you can always put a yoga block, your head on a yoga block. It's a little bit more comfortable, right? And now the action would be to engage by pressing that lower leg into the mat and then releasing it. So you squeeze. So what I'm doing with my bottom leg is I'm trying to squeeze it into this is actually also good. I just realized I'm squeezing the bottom leg into the floor. So you flex your foot and then you karate chop kind of that whole leg down, and then you relax, squeeze. This is the contract, relax. So you're contracting that muscle by putting it into the action it would usually do, but now the floor is in the way. So you just, okay. And then the different ones is kind of to stretch it by lifting that lower leg. Breathing in and out. You can sigh it out. And again, use bigger balls if this is too intense, and you can do almost all of this at the wall. Obviously, you can't do this particular move at the wall, but you can put the balls at the wall and like move your hips around. And then, and I have traveled a little bit away from each other. So here we go, I have to reset them. And now I will do that bicycle, and that's usually when I get the most intensity. So exhale when you have the leg close up, and then inhale as you stretch. Let's do 2 more rounds. You can also, whatever you want to do with your arm, it's relaxing. And it's also just nice to just do this. So, oh yeah, this is really good too. So if you ever, want to just chill out, take a break and just rest on the balls. So I just have them right there, and I'm not even doing anything, just relaxing. This is the sustained compression in a really relaxed way, and that feels so good. And I feel that one ball right here, I feel that go all the way. So it's kind of the origin of the IT band. It's where I feel a lot of tension right now. And we will be doing one practice for that. So let's look. Okay. Let me look at the time. Oh, we're already over time, but let's do that. Let's see. We have I can show you 2 things, and I'm going to be doing one of them, and you pick and choose which one you want. So one is the tensor fasciae latae that I talked about. So it's that muscle right here. And the way to do it, so you place it right there. The balls are vertical, and then you come on. So it's a little bit of a weird position, but you're coming onto this position, and I have to have my foot on the mat because otherwise it slides away, like so. And then it's, so you're kind of crossing the balls right here, but you're not under directly, you're more on the side, and you're going a little bit to the front. You're not on that hip flexor exactly that we did with the quadratus ball. So that's one way. And then you can, you can put that knee down, and you can explore different things with this leg. You can bend it and straighten. You can go a little bit up and down. So you can do all those things. So, you know, either to explore that, or what I want to do is, and I'm using the plus ball for this, but you can use any size ball, explore my outer hips. So this is more the gluteus maximus right here. This is something that usually feels really tight for me. So we're just kind of exploring this whole buttocks area, the whole hip area. And one move I just recently discovered, it's like, you know, it's not like I recently discovered it, but with the balls, it's like the thread the needle from yoga. And then you have that ball and you find, usually it's like where that IT band is, you find a spot. Usually I find something that's kind of intense. Yeah, right there. And I just like to kind of shift away and then lean more into it, like so. This is totally optional. You can also just do this, just let the knees drop and just, you know, do that sustained compression. But yeah, this is for me the most intense. So either one of those, either the hips, the outer hips, or the tensor fascial lata, they're both really good spots to roll on. Yeah, this is the one. I took a yoga class this morning, and it was all about external rotation and hips, and that was so necessary for me. And my back pain is completely gone. So I know for myself, you know, when I'm like, sometimes people are like, oh, you exercise so much, you know, why are you doing this every morning? And I'm like, if I don't, I'm actually in pain. So I know now that movement is my medicine. And it really is for all of us, right? It's important, but sometimes we get into that habit. It's like, oh, let's sleep in. And, you know, and there's days where you need that, where you do need that sleep. Sleep is really important, you know, 8 hours. I usually get 7.5, but 8 hours is really good to get. So I'm not saying that you should sleep for 4 hours and then exercise like crazy, but we do need to move our bodies. Yeah, here. So my spot is really right there. Wow. Yeah, I just found it's almost like a trigger point. So you can, if you have a trigger point, you can always kind of circle around it or move in and out, using your breath, using your exhale as you go into that spot that hurts. And I will do the other side, and then this is the end of class. So before you cross the leg over, just let the knee drop to the side. So you don't want to go that kind of thread the needle move is an additional, that's really when you stretch those tissues. So you're going into the maximum amount of stretch while you press the ball in there. So that's pretty intense. But this is what I need. It's like, this is exactly the areas that my chiropractor would be using his machine on, and with the vibration and this kind of, yeah. So this is my way of treating myself while we're stuck at home. So roll around, you know, like that whole outer hip buttocks, the gluteus maximus area. There's some area where you feel something, I'm sure. And if you don't, then, you know, congratulations. That's awesome. Yeah, it's totally fine not to move, to just, if you have a spot that feels where you want some attention, you can just stay on it. If it's not like an intense trigger point, again, you don't want to be more than a 7 on a scale of 1 to 10 in terms of pain. You want to be in that sweet spot, that good pain. All right. So that's it for today. I hope you really enjoyed this lower back hip area. This is so important for many of us because we do, like in my hair, we do sit all day. A lot of us, at least. I try to do a lot of standing. I'm working in my kitchen now, standing at my kind of higher counter. But you know, we don't really do a lot of that. You know, this is just sitting like this also is really good for your hips, to sitting cross-legged, and I like to sit on a little blanket. But this is a great way to really work your hips. So just stretch them, but also, you know, sitting cross-legged, like this is something we don't really do in our Western culture, but it's really so good for your hips to stay healthy and your lower back to stay healthy. So maybe do a little bit more of like this. And, you know, if your external rotation is not like, if I'm on, you know, see how high my knees are. So you want to have your frontal hip bones higher than your knees. And a lot of times for me, that means sitting on a bolster. So sitting on something higher, so that my knees, so you really want to be able to drop those knees down, right? So like this is much, and then you can sit upright without like having these inner groins working and having a rounded back. So this is, you know, I usually sit on a bolster or at least on one blanket or two when I do the cross-legged pose. But for some of you, you might sit cross-legged and the knees are touching the ground, and then you don't need that support. So anyway, this is just a great way, you know, even if you watch TV, just to do it this way, do it in this cross-legged position instead of collapsing on the couch. All right, I hope this was enjoyable and helpful for you. Go to join my Facebook group, See Clearly Without Glasses. If you have vision problems, I'm not assuming that all of you do these, watch these videos. And you can also get my free download, 10 Habits for Happy, Healthy Eyes, when you go to myholisticvision.com. Goodbye. Namaste.